Well, some weeks ago now, we embarked on a series titled Pay Attention. And we challenged ourselves to really focus on those things that we pay attention to and what our attention really is. I think we could also say that we, in this series, challenged ourselves just simply to think about attention. Because even though we are choosing every day to put it somewhere, to focus ourselves on something, someone, whatever it may be, we very rarely stop to actually think about the concept of attention. And even though we may not think about it much, it is actually our most valuable asset. It is so valuable that people fight over it every day, whether it be our family or our friends. It could be our community or companies. It could be social media or just regular media. Our attention is fought for all of the time. Sure, the world does tell us that perhaps our most valuable assets are our money. And it also tells us perhaps that it's what we spend our time on that is the most valuable thing. But at the base of it all of those things go back to our attention. Because we're not going to give our money, we're not going to give our time to things we aren't noticing and thinking about. This is a complicated topic, to be sure, in that there are so many different kinds of attention and that it does encompass our entire lives. Through our time together, we've heard about involuntary attention. That's when we might be doing and paying attention to something else, but then all of a sudden maybe a plate drops in a restaurant or something and our attention is grabbed, and that's where we're looking and that's where our listening is. There's also social attention, and that is what the media, especially social media, often tries to take advantage of. We have our public attention as well, and that's when we have this split-second reaction where we can be talking to one person in one room, and we hear our name just mentioned across the room in another conversation, and we are pulled that way. The amazing momentary work of our minds. And we have, of course, our internal attention, when we focus on what's going on in here instead of what's out in the world, which can be both good and bad. All of them really can be both good and yet challenging. So for us today, the question that we have to ask is, with the wisdom that we have gained, how is it that we should move forward? How can we reclaim our minds, even if this is the first time we've ever noticed something like where our minds are going, what it is we are paying attention to? How is it that we can understand what it is? That was that involuntary, did you notice? How is it that we might understand what it is that we have learned in this time together? We all know that there is a difference between learning and then living something, just as there is a difference between our hearing and our understanding. Now, for those of us who are adults, this can be a very difficult thing to admit. See, we mistakenly think that we hear information, we take it in, it's processed in our minds, and so therefore it is applied then to our lives. But unfortunately, it's just not as easy as that makes it sound. It's actually much easier for us to see this when applied to our children who speak honestly and sometimes in a different, confused manner, a misunderstanding of sorts. Have you ever watched the show Kids Say the Darndest Things? Right? That started as a radio segment with Art Linkletter, and it became a TV show in 1959. And it actually still remains in lots of different ways yet today. I actually have a clip from the show I want to show you here.
He raises funds. He He's a fundraiser. Gee, that's wonderful. Who's he raising funds for?
Himself.
By the way, who's the boss in your house, your mother or your dad?
Both of them.
Hey, you're a diplomat, are you?
No, I'm a Catholic Baptist.
Mark Green, with Thanksgiving and all, we're supposed to be thankful. What are you thankful for?
I'm an American.
Ah, you are an American. That's good. I'm glad you're thankful for that. You know what an American is? What is an American?
Someone who lives in California.
Very good. Who's the most important man in the world today, in your opinion?
George Washington.
George Washington. That's right. He's married, isn't he?
Yes, sir.
You know who his wife is?
Miss America.
That's Mark Sheridan. What's the hardest thing about school for you?
Buttoning my pants.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
You're all in red, and let me see your eyes, and your hair. Your hair is, what happened to your hair?
Well, the reason why it's so short is because, the minute it touches my ears, it goes straight out.
And then?
I look like an idiot.
Well, I guess that's a pretty good reason for cutting it off. What do you think would make a perfect husband, Karen?
Well, a man that provides a lot of money, loves horses, and will let you have 22 kids and doesn't put up with fight.
What do you think you'll be when you grow up?
A nun.
I think that last one might be my favorite one. So, these kids have clearly heard a variety of things, and they've heard it from all over. Their parents, from others in their lives, even from the church. But they don't always understand what it is that they are hearing. See how easily it is for us to notice this through our children, through their eyes, through their mouths, and what they say. But we don't always see it. We're a little slower to admit it when we become a little more grown up. We can't admit that we don't always understand the information that is placed before us. Whether it's the 2 minutes of that TV clip or in the 11 verses of our passage today, this is all talking about what we hear and turning what we hear into concepts that we can understand and then applying those concepts to our lives. I would love it if you took your Pew Bible and turned to page 574, following along with me in Proverbs 2, 1 through 11. Now, the book of Proverbs is usually just brushed off. Most people, and I'll admit it includes me, feel that these snippets of understanding that we receive in the book of Proverbs sound a little bit more like the fortune cookies we read. And when things aren't in our preferred style of writing, we just push them off to the boundaries of the Bible and stick with the other things we know and love. But this book actually gives us an amazing amount of wisdom. These pieces of sage advice that are written in the book of Proverbs actually was part of the context and the tradition of understanding that was held at this time. A great respect for sages, for wise people. So in these 11 verses, the author of Proverbs is emphasizing God's point of view, and he uses that word, understanding, 6 times, just 11 verses. So if you follow along with me there, in verse 2, we see, incline your ear to understanding. And in verse 3, we see, raise your voice for understanding. And in verse 6, from God's mouth comes knowledge and understanding. Verse 9, then you will understand righteousness and justice and equity. In verse 11, understanding will guard you. This passage uses that term, understanding, but in these words, we can hear God's request for our attention. We can't understand anything unless we are paying attention to it. It is wisdom that should be guiding our thoughts and our actions as naturally as our breathing does. And this is the final piece of our study on paying attention. True wisdom comes to us from God. No matter how much understanding we put into our minds, how much learning we might do, the understanding of that wisdom, that knowledge, comes only from God. So what we are to understand then is that if wisdom guides our thoughts and our actions as naturally as breathing, then that means we are being guided by God through our thoughts and actions, and we are breathing the very breath of our God. So what is it that guides your attention, your thoughts, and your actions? What is it that grabs your attention at any given moment? And is it what you really want to be paying attention to? Chris Hayes, the author of The Siren's Call, puts it this way. He says, if attention is the substance of life, then the question of what we pay attention to is the question of what our lives will be. Hear that again. If attention is the substance of life, then the question of what we pay attention to is the question of what our lives will be. Now, we might say that a bit differently. If God is the substance of life, then the question of what we pay attention to is the question of what our lives might be. We can't hardly fit any more into our days, let alone into our minds. And yet we have this false thought that if we can just pay attention to a few more things, that somehow that makes us stronger or more worthy. But the truth is, the more things we try to pay attention to and fit in, the less attention we actually have. Proverbs, then, reminds us that our true wisdom comes from God alone, not from wherever the world wants us to put our focus at any given moment. So when this world tries to instill in us this sense of dread and doom, or the world tries to tell us what we should be doing, who we should look like, where our money should go, or anything else, we can be renewed in the knowledge that God's wisdom is what leads our life. And it is God's wisdom then that can bring us back to a joyful, abundant life that only God can give. And this is how we will reclaim our minds. So we listen, we understand, and we pay attention. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He holds success in store for the upright. He is a shield to those whose walk is blameless. For he guards the course of the just and protects the way of his faithful ones. And for this we say, thanks be to God. Amen.